do want to go back to one last thing on managing, hiring, all those things. And we talked about it, and a lot of you had great input about job interviews and what you go through. And what I try to tell people, especially as you are a senior and are leaving, and we'll really talk about this on almost our very last day also, is it's as much about is that a good fit for you, is if are you a good fit for them. And so you want to um, make sure that you remember, hey, I'm interviewing you too. And I know a lot of times it's kind of scary because you're looking for a job and you need to have a job and your parents want you to have a job, and it's kind of scary. I get that, and um, but you really want to make sure it's a good fit for you because you don't want to be looking for another job in a couple months and you're too young, you're too talented, you've got too much going for you. The world's too different now. You'd be stuck in kind of a dead end job you don't like and that you're not feeling like you're utilizing why you went to college. So remember that as part of your job search too, is you are interviewing them. But I did want to talk a little bit about internships and making sure taking advantage of your college experience. I wish I was a little better at just overall presentation, but I'll pop up this picture of myself and a guy named Andy Penny. And Andy's been one of my play-by-play partners. I do play-by-play for Texas Tech women's basketball, Texas Tech men's basketball, Texas Tech volleyball, and Texas Tech baseball. I do our TV games here, and so this is a picture of me and Andy from a TV game. I believe that's a Lady Raider game. It was a pink game because we're both wearing the pink ties there. Um, but I've been doing play-by-play for a long time, whether it be on the radio. I did it for Texas Tech baseball for several years before moving over to television. Um, and Andy has done it a lot too. Andy doesn't do it anymore with me, but he has done a lot of play-by-play. So Andy and I, a couple years ago, did a play-by-play seminar for Texas Tech students, and we went to a room. Dr. Chambers put it together. We served people hot dogs. Hey, that's kind of a great sports analogy. We had hot dogs and we talked about play-by-play. So, in the midst of that, and I hate to keep showing me and Andy there, but I'm not sure what else I'm going to show at this point. So, in the midst of that, we showed the group. We split the group up. Andy took a group. I took a group. Another person took a group, and we showed them a video clip of Texas Tech softball, and a guy named uh, Josh Cook, who was a Tech student of the previous semester, was calling play-by-play, and we showed them a half an inning of play-by-play, and we talked about it. And then we had that same clip. We took the audio out, and we asked the group to do the play-by-play. So first guy I called on, and his name I believe was Caesar. I can't remember exactly now at this point, but I said, Caesar, do you want to call the play-by-play? And he said, no, I don't know softball. So it's okay. So I went to the next person, and it was a young lady, and she said the same thing. Yeah, I don't really know softball, so I don't want to call it. Then we went to the next guy, a guy named Harry, and Harry said, yeah, I'll do it. And so he started doing it. Then a guy named Mike DuPont, who was the editor of the Daily Toreador at the time, sports editor, he sat and did color with him. And they were pretty good. Harry was really good. So I actually called Chambers, Todd Chambers, and I called him down and said, hey, come listen to this guy. So Todd came down and listened, and he's like, yeah, man, it's pretty good. And again, for our radio, for softball, we do it through KTXT, the student radio station. And so by the end of the night, we had offered Harry the job to do the play-by-play on the radio for the next spring. This was in the fall, the next spring. He ended up not doing it for whatever reason. He accepted, then he decided not to do it and get out of it. But the point was, he was given the opportunity. So at the end of the night, we were kind of gathered around, and Caesar, remember him? He didn't want to do it because he didn't know softball. Now keep in mind, what is softball? It's baseball with a big ball. Just but rules are a little different. There's some different things, but we're not asking we weren't asking, hey, Caesar, break down the rules, tell us about substitution patterns and things like that. We'd already seen the video. Just call the game. Just get used to calling the game. One of the things you'll realize in situations like this is almost like kind of going to the gym or something else. You're thinking, you're embarrassed, right? Because you don't want to do it in front of the person next to you, or um, you don't want people to hear you. It's actually easier to think, hey, people are listening to you on the radio than there are people sitting right next to you listening to you. What you soon realize is no one cares about your stuff. They're all worried about their own stuff. And so if Caesar had done it, he was probably a little worried about how people are going to judge him. Instead of thinking, people are probably thinking, how am I going to do it when I get called on? Doesn't matter. So at the end, we're talking, and Caesar said, hey, Mr. Giovanetti, the one thing I want to tell you is this is all I've ever wanted to do was play by play. It's all I've ever wanted to do. When the other kids were out playing football on the street, I was calling games on television, watching the games on TV and turning the volume down and calling. So I told Caesar, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I told him about this guy, a guy named Wally Pipp. Now, I'm going to give you the real story at the end, but here's the story about Wally Pipp. Here is the myth about Wally Pipp. Wally Pipp played baseball for the New York Yankees. That's true because you see him in a Yankee uniform. As the story goes, he went to his manager one day and said, hey, Skip, I have a headache. Can't play. Um, so his manager sat him down and played Lou Gehrig. And Lou Gehrig went on to play in 2,130 straight games before he ever played again, ever sat again. So think about poor old Wally Pipp. At the time, they played 154 games a year in Major League Baseball. So you can do the math. I know we suck at math and communications, but 154 games plus Yankees are almost always in the World Series. It was a long time before Lou Gehrig sat. 2,130 consecutive games, a record that stood for many, many years until a guy named Cal Ripken Jr. broke the record for consecutive games played. By the end of the next year, Wally Pipp was out of baseball. And so what I told Caesar was that there are 10 people in this room. There are 10 people upstairs. There are 10 people down the hall. So there's 30 people here today that want to do play-by-play just like you. There are another 30 probably on campus that didn't even come to this meeting. There are another 50 that don't even really realize they want to do it. Multiply that by every campus across the United States. And so when I gave you an opportunity to call something, to call a game, you said, I don't know softball, which is great, right? But it could have led to him, and I don't even know what he's doing now. It could have led to him being put on his resume at the end of his college career. I was the play-by-play announcer for a Big 12 softball program, Texas Tech. Instead, that job went on to somebody else and somebody else. And so my point is, in this opportunity, if you're in this industry, if you're given the opportunity, do it. Say yes. Take advantage. Do those situations. Be like Lou Gehrig, who stepped in and didn't sit for years later. Not like Wally Pipp, who at the end of the year was away from the Yankees, and the end of the next year out of baseball. Now, real story about Wally Pipp was that he did have a headache. Lou Gehrig had played the previous day. Wally Pipp did have a headache, and he didn't go to his coach, but his coach just said, "Hey man, why don't you sit? We're going to play Gehrig again today." Pipp was traded to the Reds at the end of the year because Gehrig turned out to be pretty good. He's a Hall of Famer, and next thing you know, he's out of baseball. But the lesson is valid. Be the guy or the lady or the girl says, yes, I will do that. I was asked to do Texas Tech volleyball, and I'll be honest with you, my volleyball knowledge was minimal, but I said yes. I said yes because I didn't want somebody else to get the opportunity, and it led to other things. So you just never know when opportunity is knocking at your door, and you want to be that person that steps up. And that's true in your internships too, or whatever you're doing. You want to be the say yes person. You want to be the person that says, hey, I know I can go to Casey and she is going to take care of it. She's going to work. You don't want to be the person going, yeah, I don't want to go to that. that guy. He doesn't ever want to do anything. So remember that. And remember that internships are what you make of them and what you learn from them and what you can pick up from them, and be the person that says, hey, I want to sit with you while you design that so I see how you do it. I want to know your thought process. I want to do as much as I can do in my internship. Be Lou Gehrig. Don't be poor old Wally Pipp again, who's kind of misjudged, but it's a great story. It's a great analogy, and so it's a great lesson for us to be like Lou Gehrig and not like Wally Pipp. So today we're going to talk about audiences and audience research, and I got a little video to play for you about Nielsen later at the end that shows what they're trying to do. But anything we do, if we're going to be a dual product market, which we know that we are, if we're going to be a dual product market, you've got to have the audience that's going to attract the advertisers. So the advertisers need to know people are watching your program, whatever it would be. So all forms of what we're doing share the goal of generating audiences. If you're going to start a website, you want people to log in. If you're going to do a podcast, you're going to do anything, you want viewers, you want listeners, or you wouldn't do it. And again, I know some people say, hey, I do it for the sake of myself, right? I'm just trying to be I'm exercising my creative license. That's great. But if you're going to make a living at it, you got to have somebody listening to it, watching it, reading it, whatever it would be. So all forms of electronic media share that. So if you're going to be a manager, you need to understand, hey, how do I research that, and what am I doing? That's one of the great things I thought about Generation Like is that it's some of the things that we're measuring, while quantifiable, you're not really sure what they mean. I get this all the time from my crew about, hey, this video we did got X number of retweets or likes or shares. And my answer is always, so what? I mean, what does that mean? What does that bring back to us? So, and you must be able to take that and use it and interpret it and find out what it means. Research is a great area, a great thriving area in our industry. And if you're good with numbers and you like to do research, there's so many opportunities, and you'll find that if you go to graduate school as well, that a lot of the things we talk about really play out in research and developing research. So everyone on all sides, right? So if you're on the other side, if you're an advertiser, you work for an advertising agency, you work for a PR firm or whatever, you need to understand about research and audience analysis as well. And you need to know about what the audience is watching. You need to know then what that audience needs and the kind of lifestyle that they lead. I used to own a magazine that was going to Red Raider Club members at a certain level. And so if you're a Red Raider Club member, you have a certain, you probably almost always have a college degree. You have a certain amount of disposable income. And so while the audience numbers weren't really high, they were good audience numbers in the fact that the lifestyle and the disposable income of the people reading it was of interest to advertisers. And that's because somebody did the research to know, hey, the people that are reading this magazine are the kind of people we want to reach. So audience research is used to learn which types of programs successfully reach targeted audiences. And again, we're talking here from an electronic media standpoint. I can apply it right now to my life to at Texas Tech. We're doing a very specific mailing, which is still appropriate and still useful, to target audiences saying, we want to sell you season tickets. But you have to be able to delve down and say, what is the target? Who are we trying to reach? So there are three types of data that we use to assist in decision making. There's demographic research. There is which is the quantitative information. And quantitative is just sheer numbers, right? Age, number of people in this age category, number of people, number of males, number of females. It's something that's quantitative. And you have psychographic research, which is qualitative data, such on such as, hey, the people that watch this program are more likely to buy a new car every 3 years, or whatever, something like that. People in this area buy life insurance, whatever that would be, and that's qualitative. And it's just like anything you can do. When you go to graduate school, you can do a research at the end that's quantitative or qualitative, and so it's up to you on how you do that. And then there's geodemographic research, and that's what I just told you about. We did in tickets, which is we look at a neighborhood and then we break it down by zip code and we mail to those. So for electronic media, demographic research is best represented by the audience ratings, which estimates the number of viewers and listeners in a variety of age and says sex categories, should be gender categories across different time periods called day parts. So you hear this in radio: morning drive, afternoon drive, midday. Those are all called day parts. And so hey, I'm going to buy a certain amount of time in the morning drive. There's other things you can do to supplement. Certain programs are going to reach certain ethnic viewers, and depending on who you're trying to attract, those programs will fit. And again, demographic information is valuable because it gives you pretty specific numbers, how many people are probably watching or listening at a given time. So again, this demographic research we're talking about is primarily used for television and radio. Psychographic focuses on lifestyle, consumer needs, activities, opinions. People that watch this show are more likely to be outdoorsy. People that listen to this program are more likely to vote. People that watch this program, again, we talked about more likely to buy a new car, whatever. That's something that goes beyond just the sheer numbers. Something that's used a lot is called VALS, which is values, attitudes, lifestyle research. VALS research is based on an instrument over time. It's kind of linear over time to gauge changes in lifestyles and values. I love doing when people call. We still have a landline. Probably most of you do not have a landline. And I love getting the research calls because I'm very fascinated by questions they ask, how they ask them, what they're trying to get. So psychographic research, you can do a lot of different approaches. Focus groups, which is put everybody in a room, talk to them, see what they like, see what they don't like. Program testing, which is showing people beforehand a certain program and see how they think about it, and then talked about that. Call out research, reaching out, calling, seeing what people think of things. Geodemographic research kind of is a combination of the demographic and the psychographic by using your clusters, and still kind of old school, using zip codes and putting people in a certain in boxing them in certain areas. I'm in what's considered a good area, zip code in Lubbock, 79423, and so we'll get a lot of mail and a lot of targeted mail to our audience, to our neighborhood, because based on the numbers, 79423. Again, developed in the 70s, still frequently used in advertising and marketing. So go back through it. As a manager, you realize these are great ways to do your research: demographic, psychographic, and geodemographic. There's all kinds of ways that you can measure your audience and access the research. There's lots of national research services. There's industry and trade associations that do a lot of that. You can hire a professional consultant, and then there's local research departments. We've actually hired a consultant here at Texas Tech out of Denver, Colorado, to look at our television numbers, and to say Texas Tech is good in these areas, and that helps us down the road as we market our program and as we look at possible conference realignment things to say, hey, look, Texas Tech, people like to watch Texas Tech in these areas, so you can make money as a professional consultant. Nielsen Media Research is the premier TV rating service and tracks the national TV viewing habits. Um, Nielsen estimates um, viewing of syndicated programs, um, obviously paying cable services, VCRs. That's old school now, but that should be, DVRs. And again, it shows you how old the book is. This comes from the book Video Discs and other technologies. So, but they are keeping in mind now disruptive services such as Netflix, Hulu. Those are considered disruptive services, and so Nielsen is changing for those. So they use a device still that monitors audience that's you put on your television. It's called a people meter, and it's used in the larger markets. And they know who's watching and when they're watching and how they watch. And so they pick 5,000 households to monitor, and they're called Nielsen families. Nielsen still does something called a diary, and they'll send you a diary, and they'll send you like 3 crisp $1 bills and ask you to fill out your diary over the course of a couple week period. Radio comes primarily from Arbitron. Arbitron tries to hit every radio market at least once a year. And again, they send diaries and they sample. And there's also a company called Strategic Media Research, offers ratings. And they actually call you and do things again, use telephones to gather data on listening habits. And they want to know beyond just what you're listening to, why you listen to things. And again, local radio is still very, very, very viable. When I was in college in the 80s, people were saying local radio is going away. It's still very viable, and people like it. They like having their local radio station. So again, you can go through, there's something called RAB, radio advertising, cable advertising, television advertising. They all have different things to give you research data, and what they're trying to do is promote. So if you ever listen to local radio, you'll sometimes hear a commercial that says, hey, this is the value of local radio advertising. And they do that because it's best for the overall industry. Again, you can go to consulting firms, pretty expensive, but they can give you exactly what you want. And you ask them what you want to have measured, and they measure it. And so that's always valuable. And then if you're a bigger company, you can have in-house research. Obviously, smaller companies are not going to go that way, but there are things you can do to try to measure your own audiences. But you still have to have Nielsen, Arbitron data or something. You have to have the data, and it's hard to get the data on your own, and so that's why you work with companies like that. But research is a great growth area for employment, and so if you're interested in research, you're interested in numbers, you're interested in a job, you think I'd love to sit there and analyze data, that's a good way to go. So research obviously helps managers identify what's going great for them, what's going great for their competitors. You see that, hey, we're weak here at this day part, but we're strong here, and it makes sometimes you go, why did they move my favorite program? Data makes the best sense. So you got to understand the terminology. You need to be able to interpret the data. And again, these are the two most common in radio and television. Radio and television ratings, which is the estimate of the number of people viewing and listening to a particular program, and then share, which is based on the actual number of viewers that are watching or listening at that time. So if you live in a community of 100 people and 10 people are watching your show, your rating is 10. It's 10% of the 100. 10 of 100 are watching the show. Your share is based on how many people are actually using the media. So let's say you have a community of 100, only 50 are watching television at the time. You still have the same 10 people watching, but the share is based out of the 50. So all of a sudden your share there becomes 20, or 20% of the people actually using the media are watching your show. So your share number is always larger than your ratings number. So, or vice versa, ratings are always smaller than shares because ratings are basically on the entire population, while the share is taking into account only the people that are actually using that particular media at that time. So again, I think that's a test question. The rating number is always smaller than the share number because the share is based on a percentage of the actual people using the media. A lot of these are radio terms. Average quarter hour estimates the number of people listening to a radio station for at least 5 minutes in any given quarter hour. This is why radio stations are very, very diligent about giving out the time of day. It's 7:16. It's 1:21. Just in case you're paying attention to that. So your average quarter hour rating and average quarter hour share, again, rating based on the entire population. So for Lubbock, however many people here live in Lubbock, 240,000 people, but if only 70,000 are listening to radio at that time, the quarter hour is based on the share. Then there's something called cum persons, which represents a radio station's cumulative audience, or the number of people reached by the radio station. So it's just the number of people that have actually been touched by that radio station. And again, going back, a rating, basically your cum number based on the total population. Something called exclusive cum, which is an estimate of the percentage of the total population that listens to only one station. Again, some people are very, very loyal to one radio station. Some people flip around all the time. And there's a couple things that really are important for like talk radio. Time spent listening, which estimates the number of time the average person listens to your show or that time period. And then turnover, which is basically the number of times the audience completely changes during a particular time period. So if you listen to a radio show, for example, from 6 to 9, like there's a morning show here called the Morning Drive, which is a sports talk show from 6 to 9. They will repeat a lot of what they do because of turnover. People listening at 6 are different than the people listening at 8:30. Not very many people are listening to that program for 3 hours. So you turn over. Because of turnover, you regurgitate a lot of your show. There's a show called Tech Talk, which I used to host. It's now on 3 to 6. If they have a guest on at 3:30, a lot of times they replay it at 5:30. Turnover. I didn't hear it at 3:30, but I might hear it at 5:30. So very important numbers for television and for radio. Then we have just terminology, designated market area, um, which basically tells you um, all the people viewing or listening to your stations in your area. Then you have metro, which is basically the city. You hear a lot of times if you watch Ron Roberts, local weather guy, he's always saying the Lubbock Metro or this is Lubbock Metro only. Then you have the DMA, which is the larger area. So you can see there, like in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, these are all the stations in their DMA. The DMA has, from whatever this was, however many years ago this was, 2,069,000 households in the total DMA. And there's kind of a map that shows the DMA and the highlight areas, and then you can see down below county by county, so you know who you're hitting. And so the important part of that is I believe that means the DFW market at that time was the seventh largest market. So sometimes you have national advertisers that'll say, I'm going to buy the top 10 markets, I'm going to buy the top 25 markets, I'm going to buy the top 100 markets. And so that's where it becomes important what your market size is, because you might get a share of the advertising buy. So ratings, and this is the same for polling for politicians too. It's obtained by using data from a sample of the audience. And so the sample is used to represent the larger groups. That might be like if I picked, we have 20 people in our class. Let's say I picked 5 of you to do a survey, and that's going to be my sample for the larger audiences. And most companies use something called probability or random sampling to, to select the sample. And so basically random sampling is I'm going to figure out some way to pull out X number of households in that market, and I'm going to do it randomly, and that's going to represent the entire area. So basically means that every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected and represented in the study. And the data generated from that random sample estimates the viewing and listening preferences of a larger population. So if I know, so let's say there's 20 of you in the class, and I believe I have 10 males, but let's say my sample only has 1 male, then I have to weight that and understand that that 1 male represents 10 males, and so you have to do some different things for that. And again, all these things are subject to a certain degree of error, and you see that all the time. This poll has got a standard deviation of this, could be plus or minus 3 or 4 or whatever. They'll give you the number, and that's called the standard error of the estimate. Again, we saw that in the election last year, right? A lot of mistakes in polling, a lot of mistakes in the estimates of those things. So standard error is directly affected by the size of the sample. And basically, there's something called a confidence interval, which means that 95 times out of 100, one can be certain those results will fall in a certain range. Again, it doesn't work that way all the time, but you will see sometimes talk about what the confidence interval. So just like anything, you always have to be concerned about the accuracy. Is this accurate? What I'm watching and what I'm paying attention to here, and because you're basing a lot of decisions on that. Hey, I'm going to cancel this show because nobody's listening to it. Really, I get advertisers like to buy it. People talk about it all the time. Maybe there's something not accurate about your research, and so and again, a lot of times you'll get accreditation to make sure that you're using the right ways. Good research can be applied and used in many creative ways. Programming, hey, we know people like sports talk shows. Let's create more. Sales, dual product market, going out saying, listen to them. Look at the number of people listening to this program, watching this program. You need to be in it. Marketing your station and branding, because if you know you have a great program, that you know people are watching, that you go, okay, yeah, that's this. We want this program to represent our station. Um, and again, almost like anything, don't misrepresent the data. Don't inflate them for your own personal goals, because as a manager, you need to really know what's going on and what's happening. And based on that, you understand how to best use the data and reaching your audiences and what to charge. Now, again, we talked about that it's a different world, right? And so Nielsen is having to change the way they do things too, because it's not television and radio only anymore. So I just want to show you a little video I saw on their website. And watch this. So what Nielsen is telling you is, hey, we get it. Not everybody's watching television and listening to the radio. Disruptive forces are changing our world. Disruptive forces are changing the way even we do business here, analyzing audiences. And let's face it, 20 years ago, you had no shot of having your little corner of the world reach somebody in Africa. But now, guess what? You can, and we are able to analyze that for you. And so I think that's important. I'm not sure where that noise is coming from here. Let's try to. Oh, it was outside. That was outside my office. I thought it was coming from my computer. So we just need to make sure those things are taken into account too. So you see right there, whether your I markets in the next town or across continents, we understand the importance of knowing what consumers watch and buy. That's the very heart of our business. We talked the very first day about trains. The train companies did not understand the change in the world. Newspapers did not understand the change in their market, in their business model. Nielsen gets it. They're changing. They're trying to change the way they do business, and they want to make sure they are relevant 20, 30 years down the road. So that is it for audience research here on this Wednesday.